You've got the story inside Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, the plot to team up in Brooklyn. So let's start with this. How long, Howard, when you're writing your story and doing your homework, how long was this in the works?
Well, let's put it this way. The conversation between them about playing together started last summer, started last offseason. Now, how concrete it was at that point, Colin, I don't have that level of detail. I did not have a spy actually in the room. But what I was told, what I've reported, what I wrote is that the conversation began before the season. They both knew they were going to be free agents this summer. They knew that they have this budding friendship that goes back a couple of years. They liked the idea of playing together, and they were just trying to figure out where that might be. And at the time that this conversation first began, I'm told, Boston was still among the possible destinations because things hadn't gone south there yet for Kyrie Irving. And so, no, they don't have cap room. But, you know, as we've seen with Jimmy Butler in Miami, you can always find a way to get a guy somewhere if the motive is there on both sides. And so they talked about Boston. They talked about New York. They talked about Brooklyn. And then as the season starts to unfold, it became much clearer to them where they thought they were best off.
Why leave Golden State? Were there problems we didn't hear about?
No, I don't think there are any problems we didn't hear about, Colin. And I want to also dismiss right off the top any sense that people think it's about the Achilles and how that was dealt with. If you go back and look at just all the things that have been written about Durant and the Warriors for the last basically 6 months, maybe longer, the Warriors had always felt or feared that he was going to leave them after this season. In fact, as Zach Lowe has reported, the Warriors feared that he might even go last summer. So there was always a sense that the clock was ticking, that Durant was eventually going to move on, that for all of the success that the Warriors had, he felt there was something else to pursue elsewhere.
You know, listen, it didn't work with flashy, fun, ball-centric point guard Westbrook. Could I argue that Kyrie Irving's a flashy, fun, ball-centric point guard, that he's divorcing one relationship and entering the same relationship dynamic?
Yes, I mean, fair in the abstract, and that certainly was a huge part of why Kevin Durant left OKC a few years ago. This is a little different. Durant and Kyrie are friends first, and listen, that can cut both ways to be friends and teammates, but I think that for them is a foundation where there's a trust, and they're also going into this at a different time. Kevin Durant now has 2 championships and 2 finals MVPs to his credit. Kyrie Irving has a championship to his credit from Cleveland. And so as these two get together, they're not under the same scrutiny, the same pressure. They can, I think, feel their way through this relationship as both friends and teammates in a way that maybe you don't earlier in your career, where the pressure to perform individually is higher, where the push and pull is a little bit different. This is a more mature Kevin Durant, and this is you would hope, more mature now Kyrie Irving, who, you know, maybe he's humbled a little bit by having forced his way to Boston, having it not work out, and is now having to start over again just 2 years later.
Why the Nets over the Knicks? I mean, the Knicks is the big brand, right? That's like choosing Mets over the Yankees, right? Like, why the Nets?
It's an interesting question, Colin, and, you know, I wrote about this a couple months ago when I was writing about just both L.A. and both New York teams all being in free agency at the same time, and I surveyed a bunch of people around the league, and the conclusion from people around the league was that the Clippers and Nets, these stepchildren in their markets, were actually the better positioned to get the stars, and now we have seen, at least in one case, that's the case, or it held true. And it shouldn't be that hard to figure out. You look at what the Nets did last year, making the 6th seed, overachieving by 6, 7, 8, 10 games over where they were expected to finally fall, making the playoffs when no one expected, a promising young core, a great foundation, really smart front office led by Sean Marks, a great young coach in Kenny Atkinson. And then you look at the Knicks, who have really none of that. The foundation isn't there. They had a 17-win season, tying their franchise worst. There really just was nothing alluring about the Knicks other than the brand name and the Garden. And at this point in their careers, Katie and Kyrie, if they're going to go somewhere together, presumably to contend, the Nets provided the obvious pathway sooner than the Knicks ever could.
When you live in Los Angeles, and you lived here for a while and covered the Lakers during their three-peat, so you know the dynamics of the city. USC football and Laker basketball have always been very political. Who gets credit? The AD, the football coach at USC, the president, same thing with Pat Riley, Jerry West, Phil Jackson. Who takes credit? Cowboys, Jimmy Johnson, Jerry, who takes credit? My theory has always been the bigger the brand, the more the credit matters. When you look at Magic Johnson clearly leaking a phone call to Kawhi Leonard, that feels like Magic's trying to usurp kind of Rob Pelinka. What do you make of that story getting out that Magic, not part of the team, is now involved in the recruitment of Kawhi Leonard?
Oh, boy. I mean, listen, let's start with the fact that even if Magic had never been team president, he would have probably been involved with this in some fashion. He's friends with Jeannie Buss. He's, maintains close ties to the franchise, and he's a Laker icon. And, of course, you're going to bring to bear all of your best assets when you're trying to recruit the best free agents. So, of course, you'd want Magic involved. But that's in an alternate universe where he never was team president and didn't resign on national TV before telling Jeannie, and didn't throw Rob Pelinka under the bus multiple times and then come back to do it more. So it's weird. I don't think this is necessarily about credit so much as it is Jeannie Buss probably said, hey, Magic, look, I could still use you. We could still use that influence and that magnetism that you have. And Magic is always going to be willing to help the Lakers despite what happened between him and Rob Pelinka. So, I don't think we should be shocked by it. We'll see if it works or not. I tend to think that the sales pitches aren't as important as the overall framework, right? The Knicks could have put on the best presentation in history. They were still going to lose Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to the Nets. And in this case, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Raptors, they all have a strong case to make. And Kawhi Leonard and his group, I think, can read what the best situation is without necessarily needing anybody to sell them on it.
By the way, if I said this morning, Kawhi, where's he go? What would be your gut feeling?
I don't have a gut feeling on it. I think that while we're all trying to put ourselves in Kawhi's head, and I'm not about to try to me, the most logical path is to stay put. You've got a phenomenal franchise in the Raptors. You just won a championship. Why wouldn't you want to stay, see it through, defend that title? Yes, they're getting old in a couple of spots, but they've got an incredible front office with Masai Ujiri. They'll figure out a way to keep improving on the fly. That, to me, is the most logical choice. But if you're going to leave, if the allure of going home to Southern California is that strong, I think it's Clippers over the Lakers, only because going to the Lakers and being essentially the third star in after LeBron and Anthony Davis, it'd be a great super team, and they would be the instant favorites for the foreseeable future. But Kawhi Leonard just led the Raptors to the championship as the far and away best player. He led the Spurs to the championship as clearly their best player. Why is he going to go now at this stage of his career when he might actually be the best player in the NBA at this moment and put himself behind LeBron James and Anthony Davis? It doesn't make sense to me.
Senior NBA writer of Bleacher Report, Howard Beck. Howard, great stuff. Good talking to you. Check out his article on Kyrie and Kevin Durant. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Colin.
Yeah, I mean, there will be some sort of pity party for whoever doesn't land Kawhi Leonard, but I'll talk about this in a couple of minutes. I think they'll all be playoff teams, regardless if they get him or don't get him. Joy with the news.